Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me for this talk today. My name is Chau Vu. I'm currently a cloud infrastructure engineer at Zipline, and it's my honor to be here to talk to you all about how Backstage helps Zipline so far in our journey to driving the adoption to our Monorepo. And first of all, I will cover a little bit about the context of our Monorepo, our tech stack, as well as some of the challenges that we have faced when trying to get our customers, teams at Zipline to onboard the Monorepo. And then, of course, we'll talk about like how Backstage has come into the picture to help with the process. And if there's some time at the end, I'm happy to answer any of your questions, if any. So let's talk about that. And so before I jump into the technical aspect of the Monorepo and then Backstage, let me give you some context about Zipline, who we are and what is our mission. So in short, Zipline is a US-based drone delivery company, and we aim to be the world's first like logistics system that serves people around the world equally, and we try to accomplish that goal by building and providing aircrafts that deliver items to all the households and or hospitals, facilities around the world. And as you can see here from the footage below, that's our aircraft trying to dock into our docking station where we load in some items in our zip. And the aircraft will fly to any destination, and then the zip will descend from the aircraft and drop the items to your doorstep. And yes, so the items that we deliver can be many things. And in fact, back in 2016, when we Zipline first operated, we operated in Rwanda. And we delivered blood and medical supplies to hospitals in Rwanda or like rural areas. And we have since then expanded to other areas such as food, retail, medical products, animal health products, agriculture products, etc. in many other countries. Specifically, in 2019, we expanded our operation in Ghana. In 2020, in our own home base, US. And from 2022 until now, we have operated in 4 more countries, including Cote d'Ivoire, Nigeria, Kenya, and Japan. And last year, around this time, April 2024, we reached a very critical milestone in our company roadmap, which was we have reached 1 million deliveries worldwide. And of course, we have since then delivered more and more items to all the homes, many homes locations that we supported, because we have launched a new platform. We called it Platform 2, which is like a smaller aircraft, but able to like go for like shorter range to like home to support home deliveries. In addition to our long range Platform 2 that can go very far distance. I gave this context because, as you can tell, like with the expansion of the business as well as the number of deliveries that we support, the engineering team has seen a significant increase in size, and including like the number of teams, the number of engineers onboarding us at Zipline, the number of like Kubernetes clusters that we manage and operate, also along with the number of services and applications running in production, and of course the traffic and workload as well. And there comes to a point where there's a need for a centralized place for all the applications to like getting built, deployed, something like a platform as a service, so that some infrastructure teams like us can scale the process of like developing and releasing software in a very scalable way, so that our application developers can focus on what they do the best, which is like to implementing the business logics and application logics at scale. And so that's exactly what we did when we started our journey in building up the Monorepo at Zipline from scratch. And this journey started about 2 years ago, so not very long time. And the goals are very simple. We wanted to abstract away the Zipline application layer, like basically an infrastructure layer from the process of like creating a application, so that again, like developers at Zipline can focus on the application logics, the business logics of the application, and they don't have to worry about like how should I set up the DNS? How should I make sure that like the database we set up in our cloud provider is best to the practice of like security, as well as like many other like measurement. And then of course the second part of it is that now we have a centralized place for everyone to create, deploy the application. How do we work with the customer teams who are also like engineers, very smart engineers, in like identifying any pain points in their software development workflow, so that we can develop like common build tools, tool chains, something that like everyone, we build once and everyone can use like across the board to try to like deduplicate the effort. A little bit about like how we started, and of course like this tech stack will evolve over time as well, but basically when we started off with the Monorepo journey, we chose a build tool which is Bazel. I think it's one of the most common build tools that any like companies using Monorepo will know about. It's an open source tool for the internal tool of Google, which called I believe Blaze, and Bazel has an intensive like support of many tool chains. And at Zipline, we support various numbers of backend programming languages as well as web frameworks. So Go, Python, to name a few. And recently, last month, one of our customer team onboarded Rust into the code base. And for the frameworks, we support a number of them. Again, Next.js, Fast API, for example. For the cloud providers layer, we support like at Zipline we use multiple cloud providers, but as of now the applications that we run in the Monorepo we deploy into AWS, and for the infrastructure as code we used Terraform or like OpenTofu, the open source model framework of Terraform, and but for the writing the application like layer for the infrastructure we use CDK, which stands for AWS Cloud Development Kit. This allows us to define infrastructure configs as using any programming languages like Python, and then CDK will translate that programming config into CloudFormation, another service in AWS, and CloudFormation will, like of course, like create AWS services required to spin up an application. Could be a database, could be like a ECR registry to store the Docker container images. And of course, when we built the platform as a service at Zipline, we have, like many other companies and organizations in the industry, we build it for like for Kubernetes first mindset. And that's why, so when we try to deliver like build the first prototype of our Monorepo, we aim at creating like a Kubernetes custom resource definition. It's like a cookie cutter application essentially that abstract away a lot of like configs behind the scene, all the AWS resources creation, all the configurations in Kubernetes necessary to create Kubernetes manifest, such as deployment, pods, auto-scaling spec, etc. So basically, when developers at Zipline come to the Monorepo, they just need to interact with our custom resource definition and providing necessary configs, and then our own custom operator will take that and then deploy those resources into Kubernetes. And our journey is not like fixed yet. For example, like Argo CD, we relatively like recently integrated Argo CD into our collection of tools just less than a year ago to speed up the release process. So I have talked about the tech stack of the Monorepo that we're having right now. I want to move on to like some of the challenges that we have faced when we try to like invite our customers, like our team members, to like use the Monorepo. So the problems have twofold with the adoption. The first one is like for new applications, right? So a little bit repeat of the context that we have. So the story of the Monorepo doesn't start with Zipline from the very beginning. It came like after we have come to like a substantial scale. So that means that there are already like many teams a Zipline, and each of their own, like they have their own stack, they have their own set of repos, they have their own like Kubernetes clusters even, and some teams like even have their own AWS account. So it's very much challenges to like convince people to onboard into our relatively new Monorepo ecosystem at the time, because of various reasons. Teams were used to their own stack, and there's a steep learning curve in like knowing how to use Bazel to write targets, to define the containers, and so on. And because the way that we, and also because of the way that we wrote our custom resource definition to abstract away a lot of like details in like networking infrastructure layer, which we thought like very good way to simplify the development process, but that also poses the problem of like developers don't know like what configs to put in, what are required, what are optional, what kind of capabilities that they can do. And of course, like we try to address a lot of those difficulties by offering like extensive customer support by open the Slack channel, hand-holding with teams, meeting with them, trying to discuss strategies for them to give them the best advice, or like how to create a new application in the Monorepo. We have wikis. We have even like created a process for production readiness, which is like basically a checklist that our team go through and asking questions for teams like, have you gone through the security checklist with these items? Have you made sure that your application has enough redundancy, or have the auto scaling in place, or even like have a escalation policies in case like something goes wrong, like your application go wrong. Like we don't want to be the one to wake up at like 2 a.m. to like fix your applications, because our team, cloud infrastructure and DevEx, don't have the capability to do so. So basically, we try our best to make the customer experience better when they try to like onboard the new application. And the other half of the adoption is like for existing applications that teams already run in production in their own stack, how to convince them to onboard with us so that they can get benefit from the benefit of the Monorepo, something that we have all the tools necessary for them. We build tools for one team, but like any team in the Monorepo ecosystem can take advantage of. It's a lot of like lift and shift effort, because again, some teams like even have their resources in different AWS account. Many instances have like the database or some stateful resources somewhere that requires maybe some downtime in order to get into our ecosystem. So like a lot of things going on. Building a Monorepo is one thing, but like getting it being used by other teams in the organization is very challenging as well. So we try to like attack this adoption problem by viewing in different perspectives, but I'm gonna just focusing on like a few of them that Backstage has helped. So the first thing is we ask how to make adoption easier, and we focusing on two main things, main strategies. The first one is like we try to make the onboarding experience as easy as possible, as smoothly as possible, so we can like lock in developers at the first 10 minutes. And secondly, we try to identify like very attractive features, something that developers may have a hard time to set up and use, and we try to develop these features come in like out of the box at the Monorepo, so that we can attract more customers on board with us. And so for the easy onboarding, right, we try to reduce drastically the time to create an application, and we define the time to create application from the time where like a developer thinks about create a new application to the point where he or she can see the application up and running in their Kubernetes cluster. And with this, we come up with the idea of like you writing application template. So basically, for any framework or programming languages that we support in the Monorepo, we created a Hello World application template in which like it contains like all the default values, configs necessary to have an application up and running, including the Bazel rules necessary to build targets, including all the libraries dependencies, including this template includes also the CDK config necessary to like solve a very common use case, for example, like spinning up a web application that needs some database in the AWS. And so with the CDK config default as well. And of course, the Kubernetes configuration that has our own Zipline application CRD, so that we can have a web application up and running. But like, how do we define those application templates? Well, this is where Backstage comes into the picture. We started the exploration of Backstage back in June 2024, so less than 1 year, like it's relatively new. And we spent some time to like, as many of you here started the journey with Backstage, we built our own custom Docker image, adding some flavors of like what Zipline needs, install necessary plugins, and try to like, as quickly as possible to spin up a POC in the dev environment. We use Helm chart, a community Helm chart, in order to deploy that Backstage instance in our dev cluster. And I want to spend like some time here in this talk to say thank you, like express my gratitude to the open source community of the Backstage community, especially those in Discord that probably like sometime last year like saw a lot of my questions on Discord, like asking very silly questions of like, how do I even start? And with that process, like people have been so patient and explaining, you know, step by step, like you have to do this and that and first. So it's not a quick like installation of Helm chart as usual, but it involves a lot of effort from our side to like understand the components of Backstage, how to build them, how to integrate the plugins into the system and so on. But I think like the experience was relatively easy, and like after like 2 months, we have a lot of things done, including like integrating the software core features of Backstage, software catalogs to visualize all of the services that we have in the Monorepo. We created the application templates, like I said, for the frameworks that we supported, and we integrated a bunch of plugins, integrations like Okta catalogs for authentication, teams and members catalog. We integrated PagerDuty service to visualize the health of the service, Slack channel for notification, AWS, of course, to like do cost analysis and so on. And we even wrote our own internal custom plugins. So I want to answer some of the concerns here, because someone may argue that like, wait, so if the original motivation is to write application templates, well, there must be something like more approaches, more easy to use approaches, even like a COI for like generating templates, right? I totally agree with that, but the decision to like explore Backstage come from like many other motivations as well. Like I said, Zipline has come to a point where we have so many services and we grow so fast. And it comes to a point where like really the answer of like what are the dependencies of a particular application or service is not very clear. And so that's also like comes with the demand of like, there maybe it's time for us to build something like an internal developer portal where everyone can have like transparency into like how everything is run, like, you know, even just like answer the simple question of like who owns this service and who we should ping when this service went down. So there are like multiple motivations for us to introduce Backstage to our organization. And this is a slide that we had like a year ago when we launched the production Backstage. And you don't have to read the text, because this is basically where we showed our developers of Zipline of like what the definition of internal developer portal is. And I'm sure all of you here have known about. Those screenshots, though, were the screenshots that I took a year ago. So definitely things have changed a lot. The giant graph here is how we visualize the services, the applications that we had in the Monorepo at the time. So obviously over a year it should have changed a lot too, but just the beginning, you can see that like there's like a lot of components going on, and visualizing this help us learn about like which team owns the most services, what are the dependencies among them, and so on. And then if you zoom in each of these application, there's a lot of links to important places. For example, what are the channels to reach out for the owners? Where are the dashboards to visualize the health of that service? Any like ticket system to like file a request to this team, and then of course like the alert channels for us to reach out to the team as well. And there's also a PagerDuty integration so that we can inside the component so that we can see like overall like what is the health of the service over the past period. And then, of course, during that workshop, we also showed the developers like how to create an application from our application template. So it's very easy. It's so easy to fill out this form. We just need to pick up the owner, the team owner of this service. And of course, we have Octa integration, so we can pick it from like a list. And instead of like typing it out, we provide the service name, what kind of framework we want to use. And there's a checkbox of like, do you want to deploy this application to our test environment? And of course, many people will choose to say yes. And during the demo of that workshop, Backstage, again, like nicely displays what the steps it was taken behind the scene. It fetches the service template depending on what template or what service framework that you chose in the form. It published the PR into our Monorepo. It creates a application set in Argo CD for if we chose to deploy that directly to the dev environment. And of course, last but not least, we were able to send the notifications to the Slack of the owner who submit the form, telling them all the outputs of this whole process, which is a pull request in the Monorepo where developers can go in and add in their application logic right immediately. There's a page to the Argo CD to like see the deployment of the whole service, and then they can see inside what is going on behind the scene of our custom resource definition. They can see all the ingress being created, service layer, RDS, like database, and so on. Like everything is visible in Argo, and of course the Argo link is visible in Backstage component catalog as well. And luckily and successfully, like I think about like 7 minutes after we hit the submission form of that application template creation, we were able to access the backend of the application at our like URL for the dev environment. And everyone was very impressed with the new way to onboard a new application into the Monorepo. So I talked about like how we use Backstage to solve the problem of like making the onboarding process easier. The next part of that is we strategically look for locked-in features to like invite customers into our Monorepo. And this is not like this doesn't have like one solution, and I think like the solutions at different organizations will be different as well. But essentially, we talk to teams, we work closely with customer teams, and we realize that for spinning up a new application, right, it's so easy for a developer to use their own stack, to use what they are used to, and they definitely like want something quickly up and running as a POC. But to productionize an application, there's so many things to consider. Like, how do you do you have enough application metrics? Do you have a way to like get alerts on, if something go wrong? Do you have the capability to predict before things go wrong? And you have, like alerts set up properly. And so one of the things that we received, one of the popular requests that we received from the teams are like, how do we write alerts as like infrastructure as code, right? It's so important because first of all, like we must have alerts in our application, and second of all, like with alerts in code, make it so easy, much easier to like tune the alert thresholds across different environments. And so that's exactly what we did. We tried to prioritize that feature and make alerts as infrastructure as code, like out of the box for any applications created in the Monorepo. And with how we were able to achieve that, well, Backstage came into the picture as well, because as we have seen in the application template, we were able to identify the owner of the team. We had the capability from Backstage to make API requests to PagerDuty to create a new PagerDuty service, or we input, if customer chose to input an existing PagerDuty service, we can do that as well. And we inject those information into our application template, the CRD in Kubernetes. And we also, behind the scene, the infrastructure team deployed Grafana operator Prometheus from the Amazon Managed Prometheus service operator as well in the Kubernetes cluster. So the result is that all the alerts are created as Kubernetes manifest in our cluster, and of course, like as a result, they get created in our alerting system. And this is just to show you some screenshots of like what a developer receives after they create an application. Of course, they received a notification via Slack of all the links that they can access through Backstage as well. They have the capability to see the health of the service through the PagerDuty view. And at the end, you can see here, this is the screenshot from our Grafana UI. You can see that like once they deploy the application, they can receive like default app alerts based on the type of the application that they use across different test, staging, and production environment. And of course, because everything is in code, developers can easily go into the code to like adjust the threshold of these alerts as well. So make it so easy for developers, instead of like having to figuring out themselves like how do I define those alerts? How do I configure the PagerDuty routing policies to make sure that like the alerts don't go too noisy or so on? We offer out-of-the-box default values, and absolutely like they can change that easily now that everything is in code. So yeah, that's all I want to share about. So to summarize, I have talked about like how we built up our Monorepo journey. It's still relatively early. And I talked about like challenges that we have faced in the onboarding process and offer some of the tips and solutions that we have implemented using Backstage. Of course, features such as software templates, software catalogs, and custom plugins. Of course, our journey with Backstage is still very early, and we still have a lot to do. But I think it would be helpful to share such stories and see that like what we can do in just short amount of time in order to drive, to improve the user experience in like onboarding something very critical, such as a monorepo at an organization. Yes. So with that, I think that's the end of it. I don't know. There's time for Q&A, but if there's no time for Q&A, I'm available at the back, at the last row. So anyone wants to come there and ask questions, please feel free to. Thank you.